Well guys, first thing I need to ask you is what did you think of the new channel logo? And the next thing I'm going to say is I have a new project. I've been tasked with making an underwater camera, and previous versions have had issues of failing. Over on this messy pile of junk, here is my previous prototype, designed to get down about 40 meters. Now originally we had a slight drip, largely attributable to the seal here. And then so I filled it with resin. Then, being a little new to polyester resin, it had some fractures and cracking, and didn't seem to work very long. And then we see that water still got inside the chamber. So the solution to that is to go with a smaller camera, so less square inches, less pounds on each square inch, or rather the same pounds but less inches, so therefore less pounds. The math stacks up either way. So I'm taking, as this needs to run down Cat 5, I'm taking some little compact video ballons that I've got, which functionally are much the same as the big ones, they're just a much more compact circuit. So I've stripped down and removed one of these circuits, marked the polarity on the back, and I'm going to try and trim these cables down and get this as compact as I can. A trick for the uninitiated: this little thing here isn't just a cable junction, there's actually a 5-volt regulator in there. And this camera actually runs on 5 volts. So I'm going to have to leave that package in line. I do have some little tiny 5-volt regulators like that somewhere, but I can't seem to find them. I've probably used them all. Being this close to Christmas, I'm probably not going to find one this side of Christmas out of China. So I'll probably have to do a couple of chop and joins here, which I hope they don't look too ugly. Then I'm going to set the whole thing in some resin, and hopefully this works. I also need to probably go up the street and find myself some sort of an illumination solution. I'm going to be using visible light illumination on this because these don't have a switchable infrared filter. So somewhere around I also have some LED rings and stuff like that. So I'll see what I have, and we'll progress from here. So we've jumped forward to some of the work being completed. It's just easier to do that without the distraction of the camera sometimes. For some of the more fiddly work, I know many of you are going to pick on the way I've done this join here, but this wire is so thin and delicate. This is really the only reliable way I could find to do the join. However, this is going to be insulated properly and then potted into resin, so shorting out is not going to be a problem. You can see here I've chopped out a decent length of cable. Now I've kept my 5-volt regulator in line. I have blown these up before, which when the local cost of these is about $50 a camera, it gets expensive, but I can get them online for about $5, which is good, but I have to wait a month. Not real handy when I have to have a project out tomorrow. You can also see the video input here is attached to the filter, which I removed out of one of these ballons up here. I do have bigger versions of these that pair the power in and everything and have an RJ45 socket. However, last time I set them in resin, the expansion of the resin actually caused the RJ45 to disconnect. So learning from that, I'm going to solder everything this time. The power lead here is going to get chopped at some point, and they'll probably use 2 pairs in the Cat 5 cable for that. Being as this only requires 1, I'll probably double them up, being as we're going to be running about 40 meters or so of cable. So I might even use the remaining 2 pairs for that. And if you're unfamiliar with Cat 5 cable, there are 8 conductors, and each pair has 2 wires in a twisted pair. Hence why it's called UTP, for unshielded twisted pair. There are 4 pairs, 8 conductors in total. In any case, we'll need to move on to the next part. However, it's coming up on 11 o'clock and I have somewhere to be. But I might be able to find an illuminator whilst I'm out, being where I need to be. And I'm going to use visible light illumination, as I mentioned before. And we'll see what options we can find. So one thing I'm trying to get away from here is the massive jumble of cables on the old custom supplied monitor. So I've dismantled one of these yet again and taken one of the original cables. I'm going to wire an RCA directly up to replace the BNC, just to minimize temporary connections, and mostly because this is going to be around salt air and moisture. Now this is what I commonly call a hot glue special. I'm not sure how well you can see with the lighting as is, but I've taken one of these ballons out of its housing. Again, I've attached a, attached a RCA lead, and I've just moved this while the glue is soft. That's annoying. Attached an RCA lead. I'll put a little bit of hot glue in there to retain the insulation. This will go in behind the monitor, and this replaces that big jumble of cable we just saw. I'll be using 2 pairs to run video signal and 2 pairs for power. Be interesting to see how we get the power adapted now. Alright, well I've been busy soldering away here, and we can see that I have the 2 pairs of Cat5 connected to the power. I have the ballon attached here. I wanted to keep it nice and streamlined, so I've soldered directly to the pads on the back. We see our 5-volt regulator, our short cable, a little bit of insulation tape here. I might even take that off before I set it in resin, just so that I can see through the resin. We'll see here what the actual end product of resin like this looks like. This one is just an old Steyr cartridge, reminiscent of my rather short-lived army days. But this gives you an idea of how clear that resin is. So once it's actually set, I'll be able to look straight through the side and diagnose any problems. And we have, hiding down on the cable here, I have half a plastic wine glass, which is going to form the mold for the device. I also have some white high intensity LEDs here and some current limiting resistors for a little bit of light output, but I might end up changing that plan. I'm about to smoke test this whole thing and see if we can get a picture. Now, I'm in a little bit of a predicament here because the lighter socket that I'm using to power this is not really deep enough, so I'm having to hold it in temporarily, but we can see we have a picture. So I'm very happy. Now the next bit comes, the illuminators. Originally I had intended to use a couple of high intensity LEDs here, but I found a little pancake style cob LED module with a regulator and a bridge rectifier, I believe, as well. So that's really nifty. I think I'm going to use that, and it might just nicely fit in the top of the cup here alongside the camera lens. And after that it'll be a case of resin. I think we'll be doing pretty well. So here we go, we've got most of it all assembled, ready to go. This clump of wiring is far messier than I'm really comfortable with, but we'll see how we go. This is a acrylic plastic wine glass. It's a cheap little thing that will be quite disposable. I'm not going to peel it off the resin. It's going to become part of the final product. I'll position these a little more carefully and maybe tack them down with a little bit of hot glue before I'm finished, but hopefully our end product should be working fairly well. My plan is hopefully to fill just enough resin so that I cover the illuminators there, but just a little bit of the glass lens pokes through. And hopefully it should focus better than my camera is at the moment. So I've come out here to pour the resin. At the last second, the solid core Cat5 dragged this whole assembly off the top of where I had it sitting. It landed to the concrete floor, and being acrylic, it shattered. We can see in here. So my options were, even though I have about a dozen of these things, to fit a new one, which entailed either unrolling 40 meters of cable and chopping those plugs off and starting again, or taping it up. Or the third option, which is not going to happen, was to cut this off and redo every single connection I've just done in the last 2 hours. So I think I'm just going to use some masking tape and hope the mold doesn't leak too much. But after that, then hopefully I can bust it off and it might look good. I don't know, but we'll see. In either eventuality, it should be relatively waterproof. Well, the moment of truth has come. I'm hoping this mold is not going to leak. I have my sacrificial screwdriver here. And I have a fresh tin of polyester resin that I need to work on opening up. Now this could be interesting. I've been using yogurt containers for a while, and I've learnt that
that line there is exactly 125 ml. I've got some new disposable drinking cups here that I hope will be a bit more readily available, because we haven't eaten too much yogurt lately. And he's bought fiberglass resin. This is going to be interesting, but we'll see how we go. Just realised as I've opened it, it smells different, but in either case this should work. I reckon from my measurements with the other cup that should be about 125 mil being short for milliliters. And so we need some catalyst here, which is going to be, here comes my apprentice to check out what we're doing. He can help me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That was 15 drops, but close enough. And we'll do some mixing. And now I need to mix for a considerable amount of time here to make sure it's properly mixed so that it sets properly. And being that this is fiberglass resin and not the clear embedding resin, it is. Because it's not the clear embedding resin, we won't be able to see through it, but I don't think that'll be a huge issue. I just need to avoid pouring it on the lens, or we're going to have a bad day. So we'll see how we go here.
You go to 6 seconds to be
Keep mixing this for quite a bit of time. We have some commentary in the background. Alright, let's see if we can pour this and avoid hitting the lens. We'll do this in multiple pours. Alright, here we go.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
So we're coming up most of the way here.
You coming?
I think I'm going to stop about there, because after that I'll need to use some clear embedding resin to top off the mould so that the LED can see through.
Be careful.
Yes, that's right, apprentice, I need to be careful. Pour the last little bits in.
Okay, Dad?
Alright.
To take over. Papa, you'll help. To take over.
It's all good. Okay, now we wait for it to set, or at least partially gelify. So I've come out a number of hours later to check. Something really concerning has happened. The resin's gone. There's literally no resin in there at all. And I'm noticing something interesting. The side of my mould is soft and collapsing. I believe this might have had something to do with it. And when I lift this, I have a big pool of unset resin under here, which I'm rather glad I put that board down. So I actually believe this is very, very soft. This was hard, brittle acrylic earlier, and even shattered. So I think that this is actually not suitable as a mold. I'm going to have to rethink this, and I needed this ready tomorrow. Well, I guess my customer's going to have to wait. Where's my test bucket? Did any of this actually solidify? No, none of this solidified either, so I haven't used anywhere near enough catalyst, which I think is the fact that it's not clear casting and embedding, it's actually fiberglass resin. And I think that's got a lot to do with the fact it calls for about twice as much catalyst. But this is the problem when you have other people buy stuff for you. They don't always spot little details like that that make a big difference. So I guess it's back to the drawing board with the resin side of things anyway. I might even try some 2-part epoxy for this. Anyway, I'm going to go and do some more research and get some sleep. I've had a little bit of sleep, and I've decided I might actually retire this project. It's sitting right where it was. I'm going to retire it for a couple of days until I sort out some other matters and have a rethink about how I'm going to do this. So I might publish this video, and I'll make a sequel to this when I actually figure my resin problems out. It also means I can make a little bit of productive time tonight and get a YouTube video happening. It also means I need to close down my computer. I had been, while I was waiting for the resin to initially started to warm up, I'd been watching 8-Bit Guy, or 8-Bit Keys is one of his channels. Very good channel. But I think it's time we shut the workshop down. If I can get there without a mouse. One-handed life. Fun. Right, now I have everything. I really need to sort out the electrics in this place. This is better than the old Bakelite board that used to be here, but it's still not perfect. Anyway, gonna call it quits for another video. Thanks for watching anyway.